Welcome to our channel. Today, we're shining a light on some of the rarest one-dime coins ever made. These tiny coins might seem ordinary, but a few are hiding serious value, sometimes worth thousands of dollars. If you've ever thought a dime was just 10 cents, think again. Some of these rare finds could be sitting unnoticed in your pocket change right now. Once upon a time, in the twilight of one decade and the dawn of another, a small piece of silver quietly slipped into circulation, a coin destined not just for pockets and coin rolls, but for history books and collector dreams. That coin was the 1971 Roosevelt Dime, stamped with the mark of the Denver Mint, carrying a story far richer than its mere 1.75 grams of silver. Picture America in the early 1970s. The world was shifting, politically, socially, artistically. The skies over Vietnam, the streets of protest, the marvel of moon landings, the Cultural Revolution. Currency, though often taken for granted, held meaning. It was a tool, a symbol, a small canvas bearing the likeness of one of America's greatest champions of social reform, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who founded the March of Dimes, had created a cause that quite literally seeded hope in coinage, and that legacy lives on in every dime bearing his profile. Enter the Denver Mint mark, a distinctive D, small, humble, stamped on the reverse of our tail. The D Mint, established in 1906, bore the industrial strength of America's heartland. Denver's production wasn't about frills, it was about volume and reliability. Among the bustling rows of presses, the D dime, our humble hero, was struck in vast quantities, a dime among millions, destined for everyday commerce. But among those countless dimes, one particular sequence of events set the stage for rarity, intrigue, and, ultimately, astonishing value. It begins with quality control, or rather, a rare lapse. Coins of the Roosevelt Dime series generally passed through Denver's presses with mechanical precision. But once in a great while, a statistical anomaly, a slight misalignment, a minor die polish variation, something unexpected happens. Among the countless unremarkable inches of metal stamped with FDR's visage, a few dimes received a slightly off-center strike, or bore an unusual doubling, or manifested a faint die clash. These anomalies, seemingly insignificant at first, become numismatic beacons over time. They whisper to collectors, "Look more closely. I'm different." And that triggers the next chapter of our story. Our tale's protagonist is not just any dime stray in the stream of commerce, it's one that remained untouched, uncracked, unworn. A silver-clad survivor, preserved with mint luster and sharp strike. Perhaps it lay in a change jar, forgotten, until one day, decades later, a young numismatist, coin dealer, or hobbyist opened a roll and froze. The brilliance, the perfect centering, something about it felt rare. With loupe in hand, they began examining every millimeter. Why the sharp luster? Why the pristine condition? Was it a proof? No, proof dimes were sets, packaged and sold. This was a business strike, a circulation strike, but with eye appeal that could rival a specimen issue. At that moment, the history embedded in that dime gained new life. From the dusty presses of Denver to the hands of a curious enthusiast. From routine change to rare collectible. To understand why one such specimen could reach the staggering price it commands, we need to unpack a few technical details. First, the grading system. In the 1970s, the Sheldon scale governed coin grading, mint state grades from 60 to 70. An MS-60 meant the coin had never entered circulation, but could show bag marks or slight abrasions. An MS-70 meant perfection, 10 out of 10. High grades, especially MS-67 and above, are exceedingly rare for modern dimes, which circulated widely. Hence, a 1971 D dime graded MS-67 FB, full bands, or MS-68 FB is a gem, literally. At this level, flaws are nearly non-existent, the strike is razor sharp, the fields whisper with cameo frost, and the bands on the torch's reverse are fully separated, unbroken, bright lines that numismatists prize. Then comes rarity. In mintages of nearly 1 billion, for circulation, getting an MS-68 example is like finding a flawless snowflake in a blizzard. In fact, for many modern high circulation coins like this dime, only dozens, sometimes fewer, exist at that level, the scarcity fuels the desire. Collectors know this is a modern issue that climbed the rarity scale due to exceptional preservation, and I appeal, now, value. Online auction data and catalogs list previous sales. A 1971 MS-68 FB fetched 6 figures, multiple MS-67 examples crossed $10,000 in serious bidding. The price depends on sightliness, pedestal appeal, strike depth, and certification. An MS-68 FB that shows full bands, glossy surfaces, and no abrasions becomes an auction room sensation. Bidders place aggressive offers, competitive collectors, grading experts, slabbers, everyone wants that pristine example, and when 2 or 3 bidders vie, well, the hammer can land around $84,000. Yes, you heard that right. A single 1971 Roosevelt Dime, preserved in near-perfect condition, with full bands and a razor-sharp strike, can command a price of $84,000. Not because it's made of precious metal, but because of its story, its rarity, and the passion of collectors willing to pay top dollar for a piece of history. So next time you glance at a dime in your pocket, remember, among millions, there might just be a tiny miracle waiting to be discovered. The next rare 1 dime we're diving into today is the 1979 USA 1 dime D coin. To many, a dime is just a small, everyday coin, something tossed in jars, dropped into vending machines, or used to make change without a second thought. But the 1979 Denver minted dime is anything but ordinary. It's a coin that tells a story of meticulous craftsmanship, rich history, and surprising rarity that makes it a prized piece for collectors around the world. This dime was produced at the Denver Mint, one of the most prestigious and busiest mints in the United States. The Denver Mint, established in the early 1900s, has been responsible for producing billions of coins with a reputation for high quality and precision. In 1979 alone, the mint struck hundreds of millions of dimes, flooding the market and everyday transactions with these small pieces of currency. So, on the surface, you might think it's common and not worth a second glance, but here's where the story takes a fascinating turn. Out of the millions minted that year, only a small percentage have survived in exceptional, uncirculated condition. Even fewer have what collectors call full bands on the torch of the reverse side. This feature alone turns an otherwise common dime into a rare and valuable treasure. Let's unpack why full bands are so important. The reverse of the Roosevelt dime shows a torch, flanked by an olive branch on one side and an oak branch on the other, symbols of peace, strength, and liberty. The flame atop that torch is detailed with several horizontal bands. When these bands are crisp, clearly separated, and fully visible, it's a sign that the coin was struck with a fresh die and at optimal pressure. This means the details are as sharp as they possibly can be. Why is that important? Because dies, which are the metal stamps that imprint coins, wear down with each strike. After producing millions of coins, these dies lose their sharpness, and the fine details begin to blur or disappear. Most dimes in circulation today are struck with worn dies, so their torch bands are faded or merged. Finding a 1979 D dime with full bands means you're holding a coin that was among the very first struck from a fresh die, making it rare and highly sought after. Now, consider this, although millions of these dimes were produced, the number of coins surviving in mint state 67 or 68 condition with full bands is incredibly small. The vast majority of 1979 dimes were used in everyday transactions, swapping hands, slipping through pockets, and collecting the inevitable scratches, dirt, and wear that comes with circulation. Only those coins carefully preserved by collectors, stored away in protective holders, or found in untouched mint rolls maintain this incredible quality. The preservation of such coins tells a story about the care and passion of collectors. For many, coin collecting is more than a hobby, it's a way to hold a piece of history in their hands. The 1979 D dime connects collectors not only to the craftsmanship of the mint but also to the legacy of Franklin Delano Roosevelt himself. Roosevelt, the 32nd President of the United States, is a figure whose leadership during the Great Depression and World War II shaped the nation. The dime honors his memory and his commitment to public health through the March of Dimes, a foundation fighting polio. This historical significance adds a powerful emotional and cultural layer to the coin's value, beyond its physical attributes. It's a reminder of resilience, hope, and progress. In recent years, the market for high-grade, full bands Roosevelt dimes has experienced a surge. Collectors and investors recognize the rarity and appeal of these coins, driving up demand and prices. It's not just about having a rare coin, it's about owning a piece of history in near-perfect condition, a coin that tells a story of quality and time preserved perfectly. So, what does all this rarity and condition mean when it comes to money, today? The 1979 USA 1 dime D coin in mint state 68 condition with full bands holds an impressive value of approximately $72,000. That's $72,000 for a dime that many people wouldn't give a second glance. This incredible value reflects the rarity of the coin, the sharpness of its details, and the reverence collectors have for a perfect strike from a historic year. This story reminds us that sometimes the most valuable treasures come in the smallest, most overlooked packages. Your pocket change, coin jars, or inherited collections might hold hidden gems, coins that could surprise you with their history and worth. If you ever decide to dig into your change or explore a coin collection, keep this in mind: every coin has a story, and sometimes that story can turn into a fortune. So, next time you come across a dime, take a moment to examine it closely. Look for the full bands, the sharp details, and imagine the journey it has been on, from the presses of the Denver Mint, through decades of history, into your hands. You might just be holding a rare piece of America's past, and a valuable treasure waiting to be discovered. Next up, we have a coin that might seem completely ordinary at first glance, but hidden beneath its simple surface is an incredible story. It's the third coin in today's lineup, and while it might only measure just under 18 millimeters in diameter and carry a humble face value of 10 cents, its true value is something you won't believe until the very end of this segment. That we're talking about the 1996 Roosevelt Dime. Specifically, the version minted at the Philadelphia Mint, denoted by the small but meaningful P mint mark just above the year on the obverse. And while most people would overlook a dime like this in their change tray, this one is something truly special. Let's set the scene. In 1996, the U.S. Mint produced hundreds of millions of Roosevelt dimes. In fact, between the Philadelphia and Denver mints, the number soared past 2 billion. These dimes were meant to circulate, to be used in vending machines, laundromats, parking meters, and coffee shops. Most of them would go on to live rough lives, passed from hand to hand, dropped on sidewalks, scratched by keys, faded by time, but every so often, very rarely, a coin escapes that fate. This particular dime was preserved in absolutely pristine condition from the moment it was struck. No contact marks. No circulation damage. Not even a hint of handling wear. It looked exactly the way it did the moment it left the dies, frozen in time, and when it was examined by one of the most respected third-party grading services, the result was jaw-dropping. A perfect grade of 70. Now to most people, that number might not mean much. But to coin collectors, a grade of 70 is the absolute pinnacle. It represents a flawless coin, no post-mint imperfections, perfect luster, perfect strike, and perfect surfaces. Only a minuscule number of coins ever achieve this grade, especially ones that weren't part of a specially prepared proof set, but this dime didn't stop at just perfection. It also features something called a deep cameo contrast. That means the raised design elements, like President Roosevelt's face, the word liberty, and the torch on the reverse, appear frosty and matte, while the background is dark and mirrored, almost like glass. This kind of striking contrast is usually only seen on proof coins. Seeing it on a business strike dime from Philadelphia? That's incredibly rare. And then comes the final detail, the twist that makes this coin even more fascinating. During expert analysis, a very subtle die polish line was discovered near the date. It's a thin, fine mark left over from the mint's effort to clean or recondition the die before striking. In this case, the line is not a flaw, it's a fingerprint from the minting process, something that makes this particular dime unique. That tiny line helps distinguish it from the millions of others that look just like it at first glance. This coin is, in a way, a perfect storm. A common coin in theory, but in practice, completely uncommon. It's a 1 in a billion survival. It represents the absolute best that the U.S. Mint could have produced in a routine production year. The story doesn't end there, though. Once this coin was graded and certified, it started attracting serious attention in the numismatic world. Collectors who focus on modern coinage, especially those obsessed with top population coins, meaning the best-known examples of a particular date and mint, took immediate notice. After all, for a collector who already owns the best of the best, there's always the search for that final trophy piece, the one coin that no one else has in the same condition, with the same features, and the same perfect eye appeal. It's a collector's dream, finding that needle in a haystack, the everyday object turned extraordinary through a mix of rarity, preservation, and historical context. Over time, as word spread about this dime, its value began to climb. It was no longer seen as just a perfect coin, but as a benchmark, a reference point, a collector's prize. So how much is it worth, this dime, with its flawless grade of 70, its deep cameo finish, and that unique die polish line? This coin is in a league of its own. In the current collector market, this single coin has achieved a value that defies all expectations for a modern-era dime. Its estimated coin value? $53,000, that's enough to buy a luxury car. It's enough for a down payment on a house. And it all comes from a coin you might have once overlooked if you found it in your change after buying a coffee. So what does this mean for you? Well, if you've got a stash of old coins, especially ones from the 1990s or earlier, it might be time to take a second look. Do you have a 1996 Roosevelt Dime with a P mint mark? Is it in brilliant, uncirculated condition? Does it have that frosty, mirrored contrast? Could it be a perfect 70? Of course, the odds are incredibly slim. This coin's value comes not just from condition, but from uniqueness. The stars aligned on this one. But that's part of the magic of coin collecting. Every drawer, every jar, every forgotten coin roll holds a little possibility. This dime reminds us that in the world of numismatics, sometimes the most remarkable discoveries don't come from gold or silver, but from everyday coins, hiding in plain sight. Alright, let's move on to coin number 4 in today's fascinating lineup of rare and valuable US coins. This one is going to surprise a lot of people, because it's something that seems so ordinary, yet it carries a story that could make you see your spare change in a completely different way. We're talking about the 1998 one-dime coin minted in Denver, better known to collectors as the 1998 D. Roosevelt Dime. Now, I know what you might be thinking, a dime? From the 90s? That doesn't sound very exciting. But hold on, because this little 10-cent piece is proof that some of the most valuable finds don't come in flashy packaging, they come disguised as the everyday. Just like the other coins in today's video, this one has an incredible backstory. You see, in 1998, the US Mint was operating at full capacity. Billions of coins were being struck, including millions of Roosevelt dimes. Most of those were never meant to be anything more than basic currency, used for parking meters, vending machines, and the occasional tip jar. But a very small number of those dimes took a different path. Before we dive into what makes this coin rare, let's talk about its design. The Roosevelt dime has been in circulation since 1946. It was introduced shortly after the death of President Franklin D. Roosevelt, as a tribute to his leadership and his role in founding the March of Dimes, which helped fight polio. The obverse of the coin features his profile, and the reverse displays a torch flanked by an olive branch and an oak branch, symbols of liberty, peace, and strength. It's a clean, balanced design that has stood the test of time. But here's where it gets really interesting. While the design remained unchanged in 1998, the quality and condition of some of these coins did not. Among the mass-produced dimes that year, a few slipped through the cracks, coins that were struck with exceptional precision, using fresh dies, and somehow managed to avoid the bumps and bruises of circulation. These rare survivors are what collectors dream about. Now, the Denver Mint, where these coins were made, is marked with a small, D mint mark on the reverse, just to the right of the torch. And while hundreds of millions of 1998 D dimes exist, only a tiny handful have been found in what's known as high mint state condition. That means no scratches, no wear, no dullness, just a bright, clean, nearly flawless surface that reflects light and reveals every detail. And when it comes to those details, experts look closely at one key feature in particular, the torch bands on the reverse of the coin. If all three horizontal bands on the torch are fully separated and well-defined, that coin qualifies for what's called a full bands designation. It's a small detail, but it's incredibly important. Full bands show that the coin was struck with full pressure, and it often means the coin came from a freshly prepared die. Full bands dimes in near-perfect condition are rare, and when you add in that it's from 1998, that rarity increases even more. Some of these coins were pulled from original U.S. mint sets, which were sold to collectors and often kept sealed for years. Others were preserved purely by accident, maybe someone saved them for their birth year, or just held onto it without knowing its future significance. Whatever the reason, the few that still exist in top condition have become prized finds. What really sets this coin apart, though, is that it represents a kind of hidden treasure. It's not made of silver or gold. It doesn't commemorate a special event. It's just a standard Roosevelt dime, or so it seems. But in the right condition, graded by a professional service and verified as having exceptional strike, luster, and detail, this coin becomes something much more than pocket change. In fact, depending on those factors, grade, eye appeal, rarity, this small dime could be worth a significant amount of money. We're talking about thousands of dollars in some cases. And yes, that's for a coin that originally cost just 10 cents to make. That's the magic of numismatics. It's not just about age or metal content, it's about quality, scarcity, and demand. And think about this, the odds of finding a coin like this in circulation today are incredibly slim. Most of them have been handled, dropped, worn down, or simply lost over time. But once in a while, someone finds one that's been sitting untouched for decades, maybe in a sealed mint set, a forgotten roll of coins, or a collection passed down through family. That's when a dime suddenly becomes a major discovery. For collectors, this is exactly the kind of coin that makes the hobby so exciting. You never know what you might come across. Something that looks common might turn out to be a standout. And this 1998 D dime is a perfect example of that. It's a coin that blends into the crowd, until you really look. So if you've got some old change sitting around, or maybe a few mint sets tucked away in a drawer, it's worth taking a closer look. Pay attention to the details. Look at the condition, the luster, the torch bands. You just might be holding one of these rare 1998 D dimes and not even know it. This coin teaches us something powerful, that history, value, and craftsmanship can hide in the most unexpected places. And for the sharp-eyed collector, or even the curious beginner, that's part of what makes coin collecting so rewarding. It's not just about money, it's about the stories these coins carry. Stick around, we've got one more rare and fascinating coin coming up next. And trust me, you won't want to miss it. Moving to the last rare dime in today's lineup, and trust me, we've saved one of the most remarkable for last. It's a coin that might not catch your eye at first glance, but its quiet presence hides a surprising story, one that collectors are starting to talk about more and more. This is the 2006 one-dime coin, minted in Philadelphia, also known simply as the 2006 P. Roosevelt Dime. On the surface, it's one of the most common modern coins in circulation. You've probably spent it at a gas station or seen it lying unnoticed in a coin jar. But some versions of this unassuming dime have become incredibly rare, and even more valuable. Let's go back for a moment to 2006. It was a fairly uneventful year for coin collectors. No new designs were introduced for the dime. No dramatic errors were announced by the U.S. Mint. The Roosevelt dime continued to roll off the presses at full speed, just like it had for decades. The Philadelphia Mint, marked with a small p on the coin's obverse, produced hundreds of millions of them. Most were struck, bagged, boxed, and shipped out to banks and businesses like always. And just like that, the 2006 P dime became another faceless part of everyday American change, but here's where the story takes a turn. Somewhere in that massive run, something unusual happened. A small number of these coins, very small, were struck with an exceptional level of detail. We're talking about a level of sharpness and quality that you just don't see in normal circulation coins. These dimes were likely struck with fresh dies, under perfect conditions, and somehow escaped the usual scratches, dings, and smudges that most coins pick up immediately after minting. Some may have ended up in sealed mint sets, others stashed away unknowingly by collectors or even non-collectors who just thought the coin looked a little too nice to spend. Let's break down the design for a moment. The obverse, as always, features President Franklin D. Roosevelt, the 32nd President of the United States. His legacy is forever tied to the dime, not just for his leadership during the Great Depression and World War II, but because of his direct involvement in founding the March of Dimes to combat polio. It's a fitting tribute, and the design has remained nearly unchanged since it first debuted in 1946. On the reverse, you'll find the torch, flanked by an olive branch and an oak branch, representing liberty, peace, and strength. It's a clean, powerful, and timeless design, but on the few 2006 dimes that have been found in pristine condition, something extraordinary happens when you look closer. Roosevelt's hair isn't just a blur, it's detailed, with each wave clearly visible. The torch's flame dances with texture. The olive and oak leaves show every vein, every curve. And then there's the edge. A fully reeded edge with sharp, even lines, no fading, no flattening. That's the kind of finish collectors love to see, and it gets better. Some of these rare 2006 dimes also display what collectors call full bands. This refers to the horizontal bands across the torch on the reverse. On many dimes, especially circulated ones, those bands blur together or aren't fully struck. But on a full bands dime, the lines are crisp, clean, and completely separated. It's a mark of exceptional strike quality, and a feature that dramatically increases a coin's value, especially in modern issues like this one. Grading plays a massive role here too. When a coin is submitted to a professional grading service like PCGS or NGC, experts examine every tiny detail, from surface marks to luster to strike sharpness. A coin like this, graded MS-67, MS-68, or even MS-69, instantly becomes more than just a coin, it becomes a top-tier collectible. With each grade increase, its rarity and desirability grow exponentially. Now here's where the story truly takes an unexpected turn. One of these 2006 dimes, in jaw-dropping condition, was submitted for grading. It returned with a near-perfect mint state grade. The coin displayed incredible luster, flawless surfaces, and those coveted full bands. It was a coin that numismatists described as nearly flawless, a standout among tens of millions. When it finally changed hands at auction, it sent shockwaves through the coin collecting community, because this wasn't just a nice dime, it sold for a staggering $34,000, yes, you heard that right. A single dime, minted in 2006, modern, clad, small, and easily dismissed, sold for as much as a brand new car. It wasn't ancient, it wasn't made of gold or silver. It was valuable purely because of its quality, rarity, and perfection. That's the magic of modern numismatics. Even coins that are relatively young can carry massive value, if they're the right coin, in the right condition, at the right time, and what's most exciting? That there could be more of them out there. It's not impossible. Coins like these aren't always sitting in museum vaults. They can be in someone's dresser drawer, inside an old coin folder, or even in a forgotten roll of dimes that's never been searched. If you've got a 2006 dime, especially one that looks unusually sharp or shiny, don't spend it. Look at it closely. Examine the details. Check for those full bands. And if it looks special, consider having it graded. Because you never know, your ordinary dime could be the next big find.